Um, I thought, let me get over there real quick. So the Natalia Godleska, I thought she was a good option. I didn't like Martin Street. Um, yeah.
Why
I,
didn't Why didn't you like Martin?
um, I just don't think he has what it takes. Yeah, he was in the military and all, and that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
But he has no business experience. Let's see what other problems was there that I saw.
I'd be interested. It says he's a 2 year, a second year at Wharton MBA. So I would be kind of interested in how much schooling he actually has under his belt. But I think the military weighs heavily in the positive.
Right.
I mean, they're teachable. Most military, if they've, I mean, we're other higher up than just a GI, usually have really good teachability and um, worth ethic, and I don't know. I think that's the whole point of this thing is that all of them, well, and I think in real life, everyone's going to have good points and bad points,
Right.
and that's what was so nice about the Harvard Review was part of it was to have such a good panel, and it's more about life situations because we all know people who are book smart who are not people smart and can't handle the situations.
Right.
And I think a military person probably most likely would be able to handle under stress, but
Yeah. Yeah, I think he does have a lot of things going for him with that in that with the military background and stuff. However, I don't think he's the best candidate for the position since there's other people that have more of that financial banking experience.
Yeah,
hmm
and I think I read through it again. The big tipping point for me was that he doesn't want to commit. They're very worried about him kind of getting as many offers as he can, and then juggling them, figuring out which one he
oh,
likes
because he
best.
plays the firms against each other in terms
Yeah,
of
Hmm.
I don't know. How do you even know that? Oh, I mean, I know this is hypothetical, but
Right, right,
I
exactly.
mean, a lot of people do that.
Did he
You go
come
to
out
lots of interviews, and
right away and say, well, I'm also interviewing over there and over there and over there? You would think that he wouldn't say anything.
I like the people who are multilingual. I mean, there's the Russian girl, Sanchez. I mean, those are. Um,
yeah. I thought Andy Sanchez was the other best option
Yes,
for sure. I
right. Oh, go ahead, Barry.
I was just gonna say I think King Goldstein is overqualified, um, and he needs to move on and do something else.
It kind of made me sad though that they're like, oh well, he's got these new babies and everything, and they're playing that factor into the decision about not hiring him. And
I
I
thought
think
that was against the law.
exactly that's I'm like, isn't this prejudice and the whole like discrimination and stuff? And then at the end, they're like, oh, let's hurry up, we need to get home to our families or something. I'm like, wait a minute, you just told me that you didn't want to hire this guy because you were worried about him having spending too much time with his family, yet you just said, hurry up, let's finish this up so we can get home.
Your comment kind of reminded me of the Bednar video that we watched, and how he talks about how we want people to take chances on us, but when
Mm-hmm.
it's time for us to pick someone, we tend to pick people who are already trained and who already can
Mm-hmm.
be successful. I thought that was your comment reminded me of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think one thing with Ken, he's I was trying to thought. Yeah, it's gone. Train has left the station.
I did like that the Andy had like all of this, you know, he was building his company and he did all this great stuff, and that he's like, hey, I've done all this and now it's time to move on to something different. I do think that he was probably the best choice for that. You know, he doesn't have a family, you know, he doesn't have all of these other factors that were weighing against like Ken and stuff.
Yep. Agreed. And with Andy, I think he has the good experience. I think he'll move up quickly. I think they'll have to pay him quite a bit more than any of the other candidates, just because of his experience, and he's probably making. I mean, their net profits were $400,000.
Mm-hmm.
That was divided between himself and an equity provider in his company. So
Right.
that'll. But that's.
Let's see.
Well, the only downside about Sanchez, because he does have a little, you know, like they talk about, he ran this business full time for 3 years and then he enrolled in business school. So he may not be willing to just take this job and learn, you know, like he may be using this job as a stepping stone.
Mm-hmm.
And that may or may not bother people. Because, well, I mean, you know.
Right. They might have to consider that into the factor that, okay, so if he does use this as a stepping stone and he's only there for a couple of years, they're going to have to retrain, go through this whole process again. Perhaps
Exactly.
Here. Okay. All right, let's see what our next question is. The interviewing process. Why is there so much discontentment between the senior bankers in the Saturday meeting about which recruits to hire?
Well, I think they didn't have a clear vision. And
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it doesn't say how many. Or am I missing that? Because, you know, in the Harvard, it talks about having a good, like, the boss's boss, and, like, what was it, like an HR person or something? You know, like, maybe they have too many cooks in the kitchen, you know?
Right.
I don't know.
Well, it's also possible that, I don't recall this either, but refresh my memory. Did they all interview them all at the same time? So it was like one person.
Like a panel?
Right.
I don't know.
So
No, they did rotations. So each person interviewed, I think it said 5 people.
So then right there, I mean, the interviewee may be performing differently in each situation. They may feel more comfortable and more open in talking about their family and the kids and everything. Whereas in the other interview, they might be like, oh, you know, more professional or something. So I think it's harder to have be able to tell from each individual interview because people are going to act different in front of different people.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I'm trying to remember where it talks about it in here, but I think it's in the hiring criteria. So it talks about Ray, you know, tried to give everybody a formal sheet, and there were several people that were basically like, This isn't a science; it's an interview.
Hmm.
And so you just have. I noticed there was a lot of very different ethics and background, and a lot of people, and which you see in the banking industry, people that um, are kind of set in their own way. It's worked for them. They've made money, so therefore, it must be good for everyone.
Right. Right. Might there have been a better way to learn about the candidates than a traditional interview? We kind of just talked about that. What might be another option that they could have done?
Well, now they would Google them and look at their social media.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought they did pretty good 'cause they had the informational interviews and they called their references too, which I thought was impressive. I know a lot of companies ask for them but never do anything with the references.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But
All right. Let's see. All right. Let's talk about recruiting for a bit. I know one of the questions talks about what's the difference between recruiting and hiring.
Good question.
that is a good question.
Well, I think recruiting is trying to get them to stay around longer and looking for someone that is really going to be the best fit for the job and the culture. Hiring, you can just hire any person off the street and just to get the job done. But recruiting, I think, is more of a vested interest.
I agree with that. That was a good analogy. Like, really, you can hire anyone, but when you recruit someone, you're bringing them into the fold, and you're actually, like, back to the Harvard where what did you guys? I'm assuming you took your quiz. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not done until they're fully acclimated into the company, and I think so many companies do kind of drop the ball, and not finishing out, and so then there is, who. We've all done those jobs where you get there and you get working, and all of a sudden this is bigger than you thought it was.
And you're left alone swimming. I also just had a thought about converts and about how they say, that a lot of times these converts feel so loved and they get baptized and all this stuff, and as soon as they're baptized, they're like, everyone's like, okay, you're part, let's go. Let's not worry about it anymore. And so they lose some of that fellowship type stuff. And there was somebody who said something along the line of that every new convert needs a calling and a friend and, like these type of things. And for some reason, this just popped into my head in regards to this whole recruiting thing, that it's kind of along the same line of that it's not over when you just hire them or baptize them or something. There's a few more steps and processes involved.
Yeah, kind of like that. The other reading we did talked about how a person isn't really truly hired until after they've kind of fit in and become part of the company culture and really become part of the company.
Right.
I just found, I kind of Googled while you were talking, Stephanie, and I like this sentence. It says, recruitment is the first step in the process of attracting and finding new employees, while hiring is the last step in the process.
Interesting.
I like that.
Can you copy and paste that over to me? Send me a quick email and then reference it, and I'll include it in the notes.
Sure. I'll copy the whole.
It's the first step. Okay. All right. Let's see. What was the objective of this Super Saturday? That was this is back to the case study.
I think it was just to gather a bunch, basically to speed up the hiring process.
It was like speed dating.
Basically, it was everybody had 5 sessions that were 30 minutes long, and you just kind of blew through it.
Yeah. I think it's a good way to get all of the executives or whoever in one location, one spot where they can all do it and all see the options rather than, oh, too bad John's not here. You know, we'd like you to meet him and see what he thinks and that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I thought it was very efficient, in all honesty. I mean, it was, because it talked about how the executives doing the interviews, it wasn't something they had to do, but it's more they had a vested interest in. Like, if I want this person working for me, or if I want this person in the company,
right,
I'm going to go to this.
Right, especially if you have to work with them. You're going to be the one who wants to say yes or no or have some input in it.
Yeah. So I liked that aspect of it. I thought it was good also, just that they had so many differing opinions there. I mean, because when you sit on a council, it's everybody has different viewpoints, and like the case study said, some people may love that person, while others really despised them.
Mm-hmm. So if you had 2 people that were going to be working with someone, one person loves them, one person hates them, what would you do?
Well, that's kind of a very emotional decision because, like, there's lots of people I like that I cannot work with.
Right.
But on the flip side, my husband always says that you learn to love, when you serve with people.
Right.
And, I've worked with in callings. It's funny how we all of our discussions kind of bring in the church or, the gospel. And, like, I worked with this older woman. Like, I probably would never have met her. I mean, I knew who she was, but we didn't kind of run in the same circles at church. She's older, she's a widow, but I was the nursery leader, and she was called the nursery, and I love her. And we haven't worked together probably like 3 or 4 years, and we still get together and check in on each other, and, she's kind of become my surrogate mom.
Nice.
And I never would have, gotten to know her that well if I hadn't worked with her. Mm-hmm. But we all know that when we work with people, either you really enjoy their talents and you appreciate it and you mesh, or you very quickly realize, oh, I cannot work with that person because, personalities or work ethics, or, like there was a secretary in the primary where she does the job correctly, but she doesn't minister to the children. And so that was very offsetting. Like, yeah, she did her job, and she was, like, very brisk and abrupt, but she didn't really enjoy it. So on paper, she would be a fantastic candidate because she's organized, she does this and this and this, but she didn't,
She was losing the spirit of the calling.
Right, which, of course, when we're hiring in our companies, we're not really going to, take that into consider. Well, yes and no,
Yeah, well, they just hired a new girl at my work, and so I've only been there 6 months, and so then they had to hire this new girl, and I was very nervous about her coming in. And one of the questions I asked the owners was, do you think that she'll mesh in with us and stuff? And he says, yes, that's why I picked her. I think it'll work out really well and stuff. And I was still really nervous, and every day I'm like, please, Heavenly Father, help me not to have any misconceptions or prejudge her or anything, so that I can learn to love her and work with her, since I have to work right beside her and all day long. And I hate to say this, but there's still times where I'm like, I'm not so sure about this. I'm not so sure about this, but it's only been 2 months, so it's still. But learning to if they had put somebody else in there, I think of several people that I've worked with over the years. I don't know if I could have handled it all day, every day, sitting next to somebody. It really has to be somebody that you really have a bond with a little bit at the beginning, because it would be so easy just to start to not hate them, but to resent them and find everything annoying about them.
Well, it definitely swings I mean, I've worked with people who like have kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and then once I've gotten to know them, you're like, oh, why did I?
Right. Right.
But I agree, and this is kind of beyond the recruiting part of it. The workplace just goes a little bit better when you can have that kind of a friendly relation. No, I'm not saying you have to go out and totally entangle your personal lives, but to have something that you can, like, common background or
Right.
background or something, it helps the process. Because, like, you're right, you spend more time with them than you will with your own families.
Right. Exactly. Well, I also had the same thought about my kids, though. That teacher better love my kids, because they're spending more time with my kid than I am. But that's not recruiting or hiring. That's all right. So let's see where we are. So it says, is Ray's core school strategies a good one or not?
Who was that strategy?
Ray's, I think that was in the Harvard thing.
Yeah, it's in the. He basically set up he's in charge of recruiting for the company.
Was his these 4 steps to access the candidate, integrate them? Was that his?
Is that the?
Yeah. I don't know. I thought what they were doing was really good. I liked how they didn't pick from just the top 5 schools, but they went to the top 15 schools and got the top of the class.
Right.
From the other schools. That way, you're not just getting mediocre students.
Yeah. How would you decide which schools to go to? I mean, they went to the top 15, but what would your criteria be on selecting which ones for sure that you would go to?
I don't know. I think you just have to get to know the schools individually on that one, because some schools will be, some schools will have a better atmosphere, but really you're just looking for. I mean, you're gonna have excellent students in all schools, and it's just gonna be a matter of deciding which schools to go to, and then if you like their programs, if you like the students that come out of there, and stick with those schools.
Yeah, I think building a relationship with the director or whoever at the school who knows what you're looking for, then they'll also be able to help point candidates your way.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we've covered just about all these questions.
Agreed.
So I have a doohickey question. So are we going to have the same doohickey, but now we're going to add in because we're supposed to use the things that we're currently learning. So are we going to have the same scenario, but now we're going to talk about recruiting and is that the way you guys understand it too?
That's how I understand it. Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's why, Carrie, I don't know if you noticed on one of the things, I pulled off your training thing because that was this next section.
Oh.
So I didn't address that in my doohickey. I figured that we would do that in the next one.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So so then this next one we would pick one problem from the 4 sections that we're talking about now.
Perfect. All right. Makes sense now.
It'd be nice just to do it all at once and get it over with, but
Well,
Yeah.
it's yeah, I can see it both ways. It's kind of nice that you were able to break it down, but I see your point that it would have been a massive project at the end of the semester to be like, okay, take everything we've learned this semester and
I know, that would have been, what, how many thousands of words? That's the problem, honestly, guys. I feel horrible, but I could not get it up to 3,000 words. It was so tricky. And so I'm anxious to see if he says anything about that. But
well, based on some English classes I've taken in the past and other sometimes they count, sometimes they don't. I don't know.
But so yeah, that's where we are.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's my philosophy. There's turning something in is better than turning nothing in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I thought it was really, really well. I thought I put it together pretty well. I need to send you guys a copy of it. But I asked my HR friend to help me a little bit with it and asked his advice on some of the issues and stuff. And he had some like really big words too. So
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Well, Barry, like you really rocked out like a good like I didn't have a whole lot to add to it because it was a good piece of material of. It's very obvious why you're at the end of your schooling and I'm still in the middle.
Well, I appreciate both your help on that. It was definitely a stressor in my life.
Yeah.
Well, sorry I didn't add more to it.
Yeah.
And we have 3 more to do.
I
Yep.
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next one's due at the end of week 7, and this is week 5.
Okay.
A couple weeks. When do we want to start working on it again?
Well, now that we know it's the exact same,
Mm-hmm.
so we know this week was recruiting, and next week, let me pull up my. So this week is recruiting, hiring, and then it's career development, and then motivation and safety. Which, just off the top of my head, I know those 3 issues are part of that company's problem.
Right.
So I guess, technically, I guess now that we kind of know what we're dealing with, we could kind of split up. Like, okay, you start working on thinking
Right.
about recruiting, and you start talking about career development, and then come back together, and then help each other. Like I said, Barry, I thought you had a very incredible foundation started. I was impressed.
Right.
I think I got it. I think I got it on there a little too late for Stephanie to actually use it, though.
I haven't had a chance to look back on it. I know that you had that first. I saw you did some stuff at first, and I learned all that stuff, and I put it in there. I didn't. I copied everything from the Google document into a Word document so that I could just link it up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't go back and look at the the Google document after I finished it.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I went through probably about 9 or 10 on Saturday morning, and gave explanations and things to everything I had on there, and worked on it some more.
You were on top of Stephanie. I'm one of those like, it's not due till midnight. I'm good.
I thought it was due at 2 o'clock.
Midnight.
It was midnight.
Was it?
I hate that. Well, Barry, you're almost done. But have you noticed on the online that like every teacher has different dates and times, and I just wish they were a little bit more like it's midnight across the board.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so I thought it was due at like 2 o'clock, and I had to leave for work at 2 o'clock. So I was trying to get it finished up before I went to work. And
then we were probably frustrated because we were like, it's not due until midnight. Let me keep working on it. Let me keep adding stuff.
no worries. It is what it is. All right. So yeah, let's get another Google document going, and then let's identify the 3 problems, and then each of us come up with a solution and kind of work on that, so that when we get a little closer, we can just have it all
Well,
up.
I think our 3 areas is recruiting, career development, and motivation. Yeah.
Right.
And so start thinking in those terms.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right.
And they definitely have problems in all 3, so.
Yep. Right.
We just want to use the same Google Doc, and we can take out.
Yeah. Right. That might be nice to have it all right there.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
On that. And,
All right. I gotta get kids to seminary.
All right.
Okay.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
but